Hulkster, Flair has wrote and even talked about losing confidence. Then when he got to WWE later on with Triple H and HBK later on in his career, they helped him find it again, not doubting himself, and he was doing incredible. Has that ever happened to you? Was there a time where you're wrestling and you came to a point where like, gee, can I do this? How am I doing?
There was a time, probably 88, 89, where there was a huge dark cloud over the wrestling business, and that whole steroid controversy took place in 88, 89. And a lot of the wrestlers that were flying high at that time on different stages, whether it was up north or down south, a lot of things were in question about who was involved and who wasn't involved. And at the time, the red and yellow had been around for, 10 or 12 years. I started really rolling the Hulkamania thing out when I was in Minnesota in 1980. So all of a sudden, by the time we got to 88, 89, 90, the red and yellow kind of had its run. And for some reason, between the dark cloud over the whole wrestling business and people seeing the leg drop and the shirt being torn for the last 10 or 12 years, all of a sudden I started to notice that not as many people were cheering. And then I started to notice that the buildings were completely sold out like they had always been. And I started to get a little worried that, oh my gosh, it's instead of going in the ring and just being there, like I said before, it was harder and harder to get the crowd excited. And I started to lose a step, Then I started to lose a couple steps. And I said, you know what? This thing might be over. And I started thinking to myself, I need to do something that's never really been done, and that was, and I was a bad guy earlier in my career, but it really didn't mean anything because nobody knew how powerful Hulk Hogan would become. So that really didn't count. But in my mind, I was thinking, I need to do something that's really, really never been done before. And everybody always told me, Hulk Hogan is the greatest wrestler, and the kids love Hulk Hogan. You can never be a bad guy. And the more people kept telling me I could never be a bad guy, I said, that's it. I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to bet the farm. This is either going to launch my career into the stratosphere or it's going to totally destroy me. And when I decided to become Hollywood Hogan and join the Outsiders, and I told all the kids that, the training, the prayers and vitamins, I did it for the money. And I turned into Hollywood Hulk Hogan. All of a sudden, my career took off again. But I was the greatest bad guy there ever was, Hollywood Hogan. I was such a great bad guy that people cheered me. They loved me. But that's when I started to miss a step and started to lose a little bit of faith. It was during that time. And it has happened. I lost my confidence. I didn't know if I could keep going or I could pull it off. But I rolled the dice and I came out good.
You were one of the greatest, if not the greatest, fan favorite of all time, and then all of a sudden you became the greatest heel of all time, right up there, arguably, unarguably, and some fans were even cheering you as the heel. A lot actually were. They loved the NWO. I'm wondering, how did Eric Bischoff play a role in all this for you, and what does he mean to you in your career?
Eric was just, he was the second chance. He was the king of second chances as far as I'm concerned, because I had quit the WWF. I was done with wrestling. This is right during that time. We're talking about losing confidence and losing a couple steps. It was during that time. And I said, you know what? Instead of, humiliating myself, I'm just going to bow out of this wrestling. And I had another option. I'd made a couple kids' movies, I was on kind of a roll. I was just getting ready to switch gears and go into that major motion picture ride that The Rock jumped on, which, I never achieved. But I was making the low-budget kids' movies. And all of a sudden, I was just getting ready to start making those feature films, and I had a chance to do a TV show. And at the time, Baywatch was red hot back then. And I had the producers of Baywatch. They came to me and said, oh my gosh, we can do a show that's got the Baywatch feel to it, but we can put an edge on it. We can make it hotter than Baywatch. So they dangled the carrot, and I took it, and I started filming a show called Thunder in Paradise. Well, Thunder in Paradise had crazy ratings the first year. But the problem was, it was 6 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. I'd start at 5 in the morning. I wouldn't get done till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And that was 6 days a week. And after about a year and a half, I had it, And I just kept thinking about wrestling. And all of a sudden, Eric Bischoff came to me with Ric Flair. hey man, we want you to come to this WCW, and Ted Turner wants you to come to work. And if it wasn't for Eric Bischoff welcoming me with open arms, I probably wouldn't have gone back. I probably would have kept doing the TV series for another year. And then I would have started making those movies again, because I had the head of Paramount, a guy named Bob Evans. At the time, he had watched all these little low-budget movies that I made, and they all made money for the studio. And he was the head of Paramount at the time, and Bob Evans was responsible for John Wayne, responsible for Clint Eastwood, making them stars. And Bob Evans was all high on, oh my God, Hulk Hogan, you could be the next John Wayne, the next Clint Eastwood. And I almost went the Hollywood route, but when I had the chance to go to work for Ted Turner and Eric Bischoff, and Eric gave me the second chance, I just missed wrestling so much. That's when it all took off again, and I became Hollywood Hogan shortly after. If it wasn't for Eric Bischoff, it would have never happened.
Legends of the Ring, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, MC Jimmy Hart, and Eric Bischoff hosting Saturday, June 9th, 9 p.m., Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in South Florida and Hollywood. Awesome times. Hulk, want to address this with you, because this to me is amazing. This really was amazing.